Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is, I call it 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. We're welcoming you into another edition of The Drive for this September 20th. We've got all kinds of stuff. I mean, boy, we've got an embarrassment of riches today, things to talk about. And I promise you that if you sit back and wait over the course of the next 4 hours, you will learn something. And you will probably at one point or another get a good laugh, because we take the news seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously, and I think that's the right way to go about this. So hang on, everybody. Here we go with another exciting edition of The Drive. I want to start out with this hearing today up on Capitol Hill. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, or I really should say, the Attorney General of the Biden administration, was on there and on the Hill, and he's answering some tough questions from Republicans. Republicans have a lot of concern. Mostly, if you want to just sort of, synthesize it down to its basic point, it's that Republicans don't believe that the Justice Department operates without fear or favor. They don't believe that the Republicans or people who have an R after their name can get a fair shake out of the Justice Department. And I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that's the case. Republicans and conservatives have a sneaking suspicion that the fix was in, that there is great interest in bringing charges against the former president of the United States, and not much interest in looking at things that might lead to problems for the current president of the United States. So I'm going to play some sound. I think I'll start with his opening and give him a fair shake, but I'm going to jump in here. Here is what Garland had to say at the beginning of the hearing.
Our job is to uphold the rule of law. That means we apply the same laws to everyone. There is not one set of laws for the powerful and another for the powerless, one for the rich and another for the poor, one for Democrats and another for Republicans, or different rules depending upon one's race or ethnicity or religion.
I'm sorry, but it just doesn't feel that way. I mean, is he clueless? There's an old saying in Washington that denial, it's not just a river in Egypt. Is he in complete denial about how his department operates? Because it certainly, the evidence seems to suggest otherwise.
Our job is to pursue justice without fear or favor. Our job is not to do what is politically convenient. Our job is not to take orders from the president, from Congress, or from anyone else about who or what to criminally investigate. As the president himself has said, and I reaffirm today, I am not the president's lawyer.
Well, you know what I have to say to that? I just don't buy that at all. I think that's total. Well, it'd be better if it worked. I think it's total. Can't do it. Wow. The machine broke on me.
You need some assistance there?
No. I just got it. Here it is. Oh, that was a long way for nothing. No, I mean, it comes across as being total BS. But I'll let him continue. I'll let him have his say before we go a different direction with this.
I will add, I am not Congress's prosecutor. The Justice Department works for the American people.
Do you believe that?
Our job is to follow the facts and the law, and that is what we do. All of us recognize that with this work comes public scrutiny, criticism, and legitimate oversight. These are appropriate and important given the matters and the gravity of the matters that are before the department. But singling out individual career public servants who are just doing their jobs is dangerous, particularly at a time of increased threats to the safety of public servants and their families. We will not be intimidated. We will do our jobs free from outside influence, and we will not back down from defending our democracy.
I think if you were to ask a survey of Republican or conservatives in this country, maybe Americans as a whole, do you think that the Justice Department acts in a fair and balanced way? that they look at things without fear or favor. I don't think many people would agree with that. If they do, I'd be shocked, stunned, and amazed. I really would be. But there, we gave him his say. Okay, we're trying to be balanced here a little bit and let you know exactly what he said and the statements that he made. But boy, did it get good when Jim Jordan started asking a series of questions of the Attorney General of the United States.
Quote, Mr. Weiss has full authority to bring cases in other jurisdictions if he feels it's necessary. That was your response, Attorney General, to Senator Grassley's question on March 1st, 2023. You just referenced it when Mr. Bishop was questioning you. Only problem is he'd already been turned down by the U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia, Mr. Graves. So he didn't have full authority, did he?
I had an extended conversation with Senator Grassley at the time. We briefly touched on the Section 515 question and how that process went. I've never been suggested.
My point's real simple, Mr. Garland. You said he had complete authority, but he'd already been turned down. He wanted to bring an action in the District of Columbia, and the U.S. Attorney there said, no, you can't. And then you go tell the United States Senate under oath that he has complete authority. I'm
going to say again that no one had the authority to turn him down. They could refuse to partner with him. They could not.
You can use whatever language. Refuse to partner is turning down.
Well, it's not the same under a well-known Justice Department practice.
Here's why the statute of limitations question is important, and Mr. Bishop was getting at just a few minutes ago. Here's why it's important. You let the statute of limitations lapse for 2014, 2015. Those were the years with the felony tax charges where Hunter Biden was getting income from Burisma. Here are 4 facts that I think are so important. Hunter Biden was put on the board of Burisma, made a lot of money, got paid a lot of money over those years, a couple $1 million. He wasn't qualified. Fact number 2, he wasn't qualified to be on the board of Burisma. Not my words, his words. He said he got on the board because of his last name, the brand, as Devin Archer said when he was under oath and we deposed him. Fact number 3, Burisma executives told Hunter Biden, we're under pressure, we need help. Fact number 4, Joe Biden goes to Ukraine, leverages our tax money, American people's tax money, to get the prosecutor fired who was applying the pressure. Interestingly enough, that fact is entirely consistent with what the confidential human source told the FBI, and they recorded in the 1023 form, the same form Mr. Wray didn't want to let this committee and the Congress see. That all happened. That all happened. And what I'm wondering is why you guys let the statute of limitations lapse for those tax years that dealt with Burisma income.
There's one more fact that's important, and that is that this investigation was being conducted by Mr. Weiss, an appointee of President Trump. You will, at the appropriate time, have the opportunity to ask Mr. Weiss that question, and he will no doubt address it in the public report that will be transmitted to the Congress. I don't know the answer to those questions.
Did they forget? Did the lawyers just let it, did they just oh, darn, we let it, were they careless?
I expect that won't be what he says, but because I promise...
You know that's not the case, because as Mr. Bishop pointed out, they had a tolling agreement. They talked to Hunter Biden's defense counsel and say, let's extend the statute of limitations. And then at some point, they made an intentional decision to say, we're going to let the statute of limitations lapse. And I want to know who decided that and why they did it.
Mr. Weiss was a supervisor of the investigation at that time and at all times. He made the appropriate decisions, and you'll be able to ask him that question, and he will. You
know why they did it? Everyone knows why they did it. May not say it, but everyone knows why they did it. They didn't. Burisma, those tax years, that dealt with that involved the president. It's one thing to have a gun charge in Delaware. That doesn't involve the president of the United States. But Burisma, oh my, that goes right to the White House. We can't have that. And we can slow walk this thing along. We can even extend the statute of limitations, and then we can intentionally let it lapse. And we know this investigation was slow. Here's what everyone said. Shapley said, DOJ slow walked the investigation. Ziegler, slow walking in the approvals of everything. This happened at the Delaware's attorney's office and DOJ tax level. Mr. Sobocinski, the FBI agent, said, I would have liked to see things move faster. Ms. Hawley said the same. Every witness we've talked to said this thing was slow walked, and we know why. They slow walked it long enough to let the statute of limitations run so they wouldn't have to get into Burisma. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Well, he's not wrong. And that's just the point of it. He's absolutely right. All those things are true. And Garland just didn't have the answers or refused to participate in giving answers, probably because he doesn't want to perjure himself. More from the hearing?
End quote. With whom did Mr. Weiss have those discussions?
I'm not going to get into the internal deliberations of the department.
But you must, sir. This is important for us. We have oversight responsibility over your department, and we need these answers.
As appropriate, necessary for Mr. Weiss to have conversations with the department. I made clear that if he wanted to bring a case in any jurisdiction, he would be able to do that. The way you do that is to get an order signed by the Attorney General called a 515 order. I promised he would be able to do that, and he in his letters made clear he understood he would be able to do that.
Okay. Can you tell us about any briefings or discussions that you personally have had with Mr. Weiss regarding any and all federal investigations of Hunter Biden?
I'm going to say again, I promised the Senate that I would not interfere with Mr. Weiss.
So you have not, I'm just under oath today, your testimony is you have not had any discussions with Mr. Weiss about this matter?
Under oath, my testimony today is that I promised the Senate I would not intrude in his investigation. I do not intend to discuss internal Justice Department deliberations, whether or not I had them.
How convenient that is. And by the way, he says, I interfere or intrude. No, but I mean, you're telling me you had no conversations? You can have a conversation without interfering, and you can have a conversation without in some way intruding into the investigation. But he seems to be sort of dodging on that point.
Oh, okay. So your testimony today is you're not going to tell us whether you've had discussions with Mr. Weiss.
My testimony today is I told the committee that I would not interfere. I made clear that Mr. Weiss would have the authority to bring cases that he thought were appropriate.
Okay.
Mr. Weiss's letter.
Okay, let me stop you. For a second time, sir. Are you aware that FBI officials have come before this committee and they have stated that there was a cumbersome bureaucratic process that Mr. Weiss had to go through to bring charges in another judicial district? You know that?
I'm not aware, but that's not true. There's nothing cumbersome about the process.
So those whistleblowers are lying to us under oath?
Well, I mean, you can believe the whistleblowers who put their careers on the line. And by the way, they're under oath. They're absolutely under oath to tell the truth. They were on the inside. They put their careers on the line to go forward and report what they felt were inappropriate actions by the Justice Department, a slow walk that was on to protect Joe Biden. I mean, who do you believe? I tell you who I believe. I have no problem at all believing the whistleblowers. There's no percentage in them coming forward. There was nothing for them personally to gain by doing this. In fact, there was a lot for them to lose. And yet they stood there in front of you and everybody else in the world and told the story about how there was a slow walk and how there was no interest and how they were told by Weiss time and time again that he did not have the authority to try these cases in other jurisdictions. AP House Republicans clashed with Attorney General Merrick Garland Wednesday, accusing him and the Justice Department of the weaponization of the department's work in favor of Joe Biden's son, Hunter. And by extension, I would say Joe Biden. There was the first in 2 years before the House Judiciary Committee and comes at an unprecedented moment in the department's history. He's overseeing 2 cases against Donald Trump and another against the sitting president's son. Republicans on the committee, led by Jim Jordan, the chairman, set the tone with accusations that the Justice Department is favoring the Biden family while targeting his opponent, Trump. Well, doesn't it feel that way? I mean, isn't the evidence there pretty clear? By the way, Garland also says he has no knowledge of any FBI agents or assets that were working at the Capitol on January 6th. I don't know. He said, you don't know how many there were? I don't know the answer to that question. I have no knowledge, he says. Listen, I'm glad that he finally showed up for this grilling. He can say that there's no fear or favor, that everything is on the up and up and it's a level playing field. But it would seem anybody who looks at the evidence time and time again would have to laugh at such an assertion by the man who is supposed to be the leading law enforcement officer of the United States. 20 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties.
We are having some technical
Brian. Our
difficulties.
computer system is, I think we're down for updates, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know where this came from, but I have nothing on this side.
So that means that until further notice, I got to keep talking.
I guess that's what we got to do.
Nothing like signing off and just get, man, I buttoned that up in a nice big bow and I was ready to hit the
Very
commercial
nice,
break.
yeah.
Yeah, well, So do you have any sense of how long it's going to be down?
If there was an issue, got a reply back saying that there were Windows updates being performed. But that's
In the middle of a show, huh?
Well, yeah.
All right.
That's a whole nother thing. Yeah, I'm
Well-
pushing buttons and nothing's happening yet. So apparently the server is still down.
Well, then we need to have some pleasant music to please stand by with while I decide what we're going to talk about next.
I would play that, but I can't play.
Oh, but it's
anything.
on the server as well. What do you do when you have no place to go? Well, I'll have to do this. Please stand by. We're having some technical difficulties. In the meantime, perhaps we could all just take a moment to take a deep breath. I know I need a deep breath right now. So let's do this. If you're driving out there and you're stuck in traffic, why don't we just all take a deep breath? You ready? On 3. In with the good air. Hold it, hold it, hold it. And then slowly exhale. With each breath, you were feeling less and less tension. The tension of the day is fading fast. Another deep breath. 1. And hold it. And there we go.
I'm gonna really need several deep breaths.
It's going to go for a while, huh?
So I don't know what else to do. Can't do anything. Let's see.
You know what I always say one time I was doing a show on Fox News. I had
I do have that. Yeah, I can play that.
what's that?
That's elevator music.
No.
Like literally.
Yeah. You know what? There was a time where I was on the air at Fox News doing an afternoon show on a Saturday, and it was one of those, we called it Weekend Live, and the whole idea of the program was to take the worldwide resources of Fox News and just bounce from reporter to reporter to reporter and go all over the world. I mean, the guys, for example, in the Jerusalem Bureau, they loved it because they didn't get on that much, and they loved that we would do something with them, and we would go and we would bounce from here, from the White House to Capitol Hill to Jerusalem to London, and we would go all around the world. And then, so on this particular day, I come in and I do my intro. I said, the worldwide resources of Fox News are standing by, and then we come to me and I throw to my first story. And I hear in my earpiece, we got a technical problem. And I said, okay. Well, apparently we're having a technical problem, I said. And then I said, so what we should do is we should just move on. Please bear with us. And I called for the next live shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the little voice in my ear, my little earpiece said, we don't have that live shot either.
Oh.
And I said, okay, well, apparently we are having a real technical difficulty. Let's try one more. And I went to the third live shot. And I tossed to the person who was supposed to be the reporter on the other end. And again, the little voice comes in my ear and says, Brian, we don't have any live shots. Well, that was the whole purpose of the show.
That's the show, yeah.
That's the show, was to have live shot after live shot after live shot. And we didn't have any live shots. And I said what I will say now. You know what? When radio and television goes badly, you should just stick around because it's generally very entertaining.
Could get good, yeah.
It could get good. I mean, do you think anybody who's listening to this right now is going to leave in the middle of this? No.
They want to see what happens.
They want to know how we get out of it.
Yep.
They want to know how we're going to squirm our way out of this. Mac Murray just joined us. Mac, we don't have anything that we can do because the server's down.
I was wondering what
Yeah.
was going on. I was like, oh, he's in the middle of a story. He's finishing up.
No,
and then
I was telling a story because I'm what you call tap dancing.
Yes. You're filling
because-
time.
Because apparently we can't go to commercial break. We can't. There's so many things we can't do. Yeah, I don't know. So hang on. I'm going to go back to my wall of news over here.
Yes, of course. You've got a big old wall of that.
Hopefully it's a substantial wall.
That's right. I do have. I used to have that Jeopardy song somewhere. I don't know. Anyway, okay. Well, let's just talk about the 2024 election. How about we do that for a little bit? And I found a really great story in townhall.com that says that that Democrats are now starting to hit the panic button. And it's written by Guy Benson, and he writes a very interesting column here about all the things that are going on. It is not hard, he says, to see why the left chattering class and the media are growing increasingly anxious. And it's not just because Trump has edged out in front of Biden in the real clear politics average, just slightly. Some of the specific findings in a handful of recent polls are just brutal for Biden and his party. For example, and here's an interesting poll, Suffolk University, the Sawyer Business School, and USA Today poll asked the question, how do you feel about the economy? Do you feel the economy is, quote, improving, or is it getting worse? 20% said they thought it was improving. I don't know who they are, but they said it was improving. But the other number is devastating to the Biden administration. It's getting worse, 70%. Who do you trust more to improve the economy? Trump, 47, Biden, 36. 11-point lead by Trump in that question. And if you ask that question, who do you trust to improve the economy of independents, and independents often decide national elections, it's Trump 46 and Biden 26. He leads Biden by 20 points in that poll. Oh, and there's more. Only 34% of Americans say they approve of Biden's handling of the economy. That's a shocking number. 34% of Americans say they approve of Biden's handling of the economy, compared with 59% who disapprove. And 76% of independents and even 34% of Democrats say the economy is getting worse. 84% of Americans say their cost of living is rising, and food and groceries is a concern among many. That's shocking. Those are shocking numbers. Now, if you go with the old saying that it's the economy stupid in an election year, then you run into the fact that, well, you know what? The economy is thought to be the problem of the Biden administration, and you cannot, if you're the president of the United States, walk away from any claim that what happens in the economy is not your problem. In fact, this president seems to be in the mistaken belief that Bidenomics are working. He keeps going out and talking about Bidenomics. It's working. It's working. Things are so much better. Well, they're really not better, according to these numbers. Barely 1/3 of voters think the president's doing a good job on the economy. And again, they keep trying to make the case that Bidenomics, if we say it often enough, perhaps, people will start to believe that the economy is working in our favor. It's not. Overall, prices are up 17%. It's still rising. And again, they blame that on the Biden administration. Consumer Price Index shows that goods are going up, and they will continue to go up. Right now, we have a situation with the I'm sorry, I lost my track of I beg your indulgence. We have a situation where the interest rates, they put a pause on them today, but they probably will go up again because inflation is going up, and that largely has to do with the cost of gasoline. Just a few things that I was going to talk about later, but I'm going to talk about now. And in the meantime, I've talked long enough that it's time for Mac Morey to take over for a minute so I can catch my breath. It's 30 minutes. Save me, Mac Morey. 30 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
It is 3:30. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 86 degrees in Middle Tennessee. And looking at weather the rest of this week, it's going to be mid-80s, partly sunny every day. You've got a slight chance of showers on Sunday, but no storms and definitely nothing severe. Fall weather coming closer and closer. Traffic and weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. We're starting in the nation's capital, where the federal government spending showdown is continuing inside the Capitol. House Republicans remain divided right now on whether to keep the government open past that September 30th deadline with a continuing resolution or just shut the doors until a full agreement can be reached. Tennessee 5th District Congressman Andy Ogles says on WTN's The Chris Hand Show that he and other so-called rebellious members want spending limits and deregulation.
I have a job to do. Let's stay here. Let's work long hours. Let's work the weekend.
Speaker McCarthy has signaled keeping members in D.C. over the weekend. And some free COVID tests from the government will soon be available again to Americans. Karen Travers.
The website for free COVID tests from the government, covidtest.gov, will be relaunched in the coming weeks, and Americans will again be able to order free tests to be sent to their homes. HHS Secretary Javier Becerra was getting his COVID shot Wednesday in Washington and told reporters the Biden administration will make available some of the tests it has in a stockpile. No details yet on how many tests will be available, when the website will relaunch, and how much this will cost.
Housing in Tennessee. Channel 4 says that the National Housing Trust has just launched a partnership with Amazon to help people buy homes. Amazon's going to invest $40 million in Nashville, along with Puget, Washington, and Arlington, Virginia. And according to the Nashville Affordable Housing Task Force report, in order to meet Nashville's affordable housing needs by 2030, 5,250 new units will need to be created each year, and the current rate of production only just a little over 1,300 units are being built every year. We've got some entertainment news as well. Singer-songwriter Noah Kahan coming back to Nashville next year. He'll be at the Bridgestone Arena on May 24th, 2024. A pre-sale happening a week from today. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
All right. Is this thing on? Is this thing working? Hello? Is it working? Okay.
I think we're
back
okay
up
now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed you ran all those spots. We're all caught up now. So, wow.
We got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So we can, pay to keep our windows updated.
That's right. And, I don't know why that couldn't be done at night. I don't understand. I just don't understand. But let's, what you got to do? When you got to shake it off.
That's right. Yeah.
Just, shake it off, as Tay would say. And by the way, Tay will figure very prominently in our program. It's really the highlight of the program. Happens at 5:25 every day. Now it's what we call McMurray's Wide World of Sports. And Tay will figure prominently in a sports story.
Really?
Let's not give it away, but I'm telling you, when worlds collide, when the world of entertainment and sports collide, well, McMurray is right there to cover that intersection.
Is she joining the WWE or something?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to give it away. We're not going to give it away, but you definitely want to swing back by. I don't know what's going on today. Everybody's abandoning me. We're not going to be able to do our regular market report. John Maxon has had a conflict today, but I'll jump in there. Pete Hegseth, who normally joins us. Everything's going to hell in a handbasket here. He normally joins us at 4:35 on Wednesday, and he just texted me a few moments ago and said, "I'm on a plane. The plane is running late. I thought I'd be there, but he's not going to be able to make it either."
Oh.
So at my show, which was lovely little crafted show, is starting to look like Swiss cheese right now.
It's in shambles.
It's in shambles. All right. Shake it off. I do want to talk, if I could, for a moment about what's happening on the border right now, because the border is, I'm telling you, perhaps the worst it has ever been. I was watching that nice Bill Maloogian this morning from Eagle Pass, Texas. And remember when we saw, I guess it's about a year ago, maybe a little more, we saw all of the illegal immigrants that gathered underneath the bridge at Eagle Pass? And it was, there was quite a picture. And I think then it was Haitian immigrants who were largely there. The very same thing is happening now, except that at the bridge in Eagle Pass, it seems to be a large contingent of Venezuelan refugees and immigrants who are in this country, and they're under that bridge, and they're here illegally. We're getting about 9,000 a day are coming across the border illegally, which is a very high number. And there are trains, apparently a train full of about 1,500 just arrived. It's a coal train, and they were hitching a ride north, and they have arrived, and there are more trains coming. If you had any thought that the Border Patrol, the border story was going to not be quite the story we thought it was going to be in the past, you need to be disabused of that notion. It is a bad problem right now, perhaps as bad as it has ever been, skyrocketing. Governors have asked Biden for an honest and accurate information on illegal immigration. Did you hear this? The 24 Republican governors said illegal immigration burdens every state, and they asked President Joe Biden for an honest and accurate assessment of the situation. A letter sent Tuesday blamed Biden's policies on the surge in illegal crossings at the southern border. States are on the front lines, working around the clock, responding to the effects of the crisis, they write. Shelters are full, food pantries empty, law enforcement strained, and aid workers exhausted. As governors, we call on you to provide honest, accurate, detailed information on where the migrants admitted at the southern border are being relocated in the United States, in addition to comprehensive data on asylum claim timelines and qualification rates, and about the number of successful deportations. How many people are actually being told, "I'm sorry, no, you cannot come in," and turned around and sent back across the border? We ask for this information immediately, but also regularly as the crisis at the border continues. The influx of illegal immigrants places a financial burden on the states. I don't understand how the Biden administration can continue to pretend like there's not a problem at the border. If you were to ask Karine, she would just simply look at you and say, oh, the border's closed. If you were to ask Mayorkas, they'd be, no, the border is secure. The border is closed. But if you ask anybody who lives on the border, they will tell you a very different story. It is utter, unmitigated chaos at the moment, perhaps as bad as it has ever been. And I'll tell you what I think is at play here. I think it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse until Election Day, because I think many of the people who would like to come to this country and take advantage of the fact that the borders are apparently wide open will want to do that before we get to the election. I think they realize that if there's a different president, and we all hope that there is, that they will shut down the border the way Donald Trump shut down the border before. They will go back to very tight enforcement of immigration laws. The thing about it is that all of this is absolutely stoppable, and when the snap of a finger, all that President Biden needs to do is say to the Border Patrol and to ICE, we are once again going to actually enforce our border laws. We're going to interpret the laws this way, and we're going to crack down, and we're going to shut this thing down. How far can they push it? I mean, you've even got blue state mayors who are blue city mayors, like New York's mayor, Eric Adams. He's complaining about the 110 migrants that have made their way to his city. And although he tries to point the finger at Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, there are 110,000 migrants that are now trying to find shelter and a place to live in New York City, but Governor Abbott's only responsible for about 13,000 of the 110,000. So about 97,000 of those migrants had nothing to do with Governor Greg Abbott. They had everything to do with the Biden administration and their policies. Mayors around the country are in blue cities, the so-called sanctuary cities, are in a world of hurt. They're having to cut their budgets, slash their budgets so they can provide humanitarian services for the people who are coming there. And they're coming, and they're going to continue to come. And if you look at the border, it's not going to be long before that 110,000 turns into 200,000. It is bad as I've ever seen it. So the governors are, what they're asking for is real information. Tell us, where these people are. And the fact of the matter is, they know the answer. The answer is that the Biden administration cannot tell them where they are. The governors said more than 5.8 million people have crossed the southern border illegally. The problem has grown at the northern border, where illegal immigration has also increased by 850% in some cases. 244 people who crossed the border and who came in contact with law enforcement were on the terror watch list. We have no idea how many of the 1.7 million gotaways were on the terror watch list. No idea whatsoever. Absent transparency from your administration, though, we cannot know how many terrorists have evaded capture and are now freely moving about the country. Your administration admitted under oath to Congress that cartels prioritize the southern border as a major corridor and exploit it daily for human and narcotics trafficking. You know what? And by the way, that's something else. Every time somebody comes across the border illegally, they have paid a coyote who works for the cartel. In other words, every illegal immigrant not only puts a drain on our national resources and the resources of major cities around the country and states all over the place, and certainly the state of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Absolutely. It puts a real burden on them, but it's not going to get any better. There is a burden that we are facing right here in Nashville, Tennessee. The story that we told you last week is that Nashville, Tennessee has the highest rate of overdoses per capita, mostly because of fentanyl that came across the border. The highest rate with against every other city compared except Baltimore. Baltimore has a slightly worse problem than we have here in Nashville, with overdose deaths, largely the result of fentanyl. Where did it come from? It came from the border. But every time somebody comes across that border, Every time fentanyl comes across the border and we allow it or we don't interdict it, which is happening a lot, the cartels become richer and stronger. The war needs to be waged against the cartels. And it doesn't seem as if there is any interest whatsoever of the Biden administration to try to address this problem. It is bad now as it has ever been, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. 50 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. We know that diversification is an important part of the investing process, but how do you reduce risk of a portfolio through diversification? Well, you use correlations. Now think of bathing suit sales and suntan oil sales. They tend to move together, right? Think of bathing suit sales versus winter coat sales. More dissimilar movement, and that's the idea. But why is diversification so important? Well, think about it this way. Everybody would like to have this happen with their investments. They just go straight up. But what we know is this is really what tends to happen. Markets may go way up and then down, or down, then way up. Now let's say if we isolate parts of that curve right there, and the first curve right there, and the second curve right there. If you're putting money away for retirement, every time you put money in, if this is what's going on, you're buying more shares. Then just before you retire, the market goes up, you're really happy. If, on the other hand, you keep paying a higher and higher price and then the market goes down, you're really sad. And we can't choose what's going to happen with the market next. But what we can do is what we know through academic research, and there are Nobel Prizes awarded for this, is we can look for things that tend to move in dissimilar fashion. And what happens when we do that, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio, hence bringing those curves in. Now that's the idea. Now if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
A government shutdown possible, a convicted felon captured, and an ex-boyfriend's jealousy goes way too far. Those stories and more coming up at 4. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, looking at the Dow Jones Industrials down 76, S&P down 41, NASDAQ down 209 today. Not a good day for the major indices. And oil very quickly is at about $90 a barrel for West Texas Intermediate and $93 a barrel for Brent crude, which means that higher gas prices are on the horizon. It is now 57. By the way, brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Learn more at beaconcm.com. 57 minutes now past the hour. Let me talk to you, if I could, about Everseal. And what is Everseal? Everseal is a sealant. It was actually, it's been around for a long time, but it was mostly used in industrial applications. It's a permanent sealant for your exterior wood and concrete. And along the way, the folks over at Everseal figured out a way to provide this solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. Their process starts by deep cleaning all the way through to make sure the wood and concrete looks as good as it possibly can. And then their patented seal will absorb all the way through to become a permanent part of the wood and concrete to prevent any further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. 30 to 50 years. Now, think about how much money you save if you don't have to think about those things for all that time. You don't have to spend time each and every year doing it over and over and over and over. You could save a ton of money. And if that sounds good to you, then why don't you reach out to Steve Nelson and the team over at Everseal. Here's the number, 844-EVER-USA, or learn more by going to their website, ever-seal.com.
It is 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 86 degrees and expecting temperatures in the mid-80s with that sun flying high in the sky these next few days in Middle Tennessee. Complete weather forecast plus a traffic report. It's headed your way in 5 minutes. With the government shutdown looming just 11 days away, House Republican leaders rushing to get conservatives on board a stopgap measure that would keep the government open until October 31st. One of the holdouts is Tennessee 5th District Congressman Andy Ogles, who tells WTN's Chris Hand Show.
So I've advocated that we stay here this weekend and we stay here every day until we get it done. That's what I would expect of my congressman. That's what I expect of myself, and that's what I expect of my colleagues.
Ogles and other members want stricter spending limits and deregulation. Crime in Tennessee. Fox 17 reports that 52-year-old Felix Keel A convicted felon was chased down this morning and arrested. It started Monday night. Police saw Keel in a stolen car. They tried to pursue him. He got away. Officials then set up a traffic stop on Lewis Street in Hermitage where they eventually had Keel drive up. He attempted to run away, but was eventually caught on foot by canines. Keel is currently on supervised felony probation until 2028. Keel had an open bottle of whiskey in the center console while driving. He's being held on an $80,000 bond. And holiday hiring, it's ramping up in Tennessee.
Fox 17 says a news release from Amazon shows it wants to fill 7,600 positions for the Christmas shopping season, promising between $20 an hour and $28 an hour for full-time, seasonal, and part-time roles. Other offerings include prepaid college tuition and health care benefits, on-the-job safety training. An Amazon spokesperson says the company's invested over $20.6 billion in Tennessee since 2010. And that report says Amazon's created more than 23,000 direct jobs in the volunteer state, an additional 38,800 indirect jobs. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And some crime in Tennessee. A man in critical condition after getting shot in South Nashville. This was last night. A man was sitting with his girlfriend in their car when 19-year-old Eduardo Paz shot multiple times through the front windshield and hood. Paz was armed with a semi-automatic rifle. He is now in custody, and officials say that Paz is the ex-boyfriend of the victim's current girlfriend. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, everybody, it's 7 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, and this is hour number 2 of the drive for this Wednesday, September 20th. Glad you're with us. Glad you're, I hope you're enjoying this beautiful weather outside. I mean, I'm telling you, it is nice, nice, nice. And as I heard, I don't think there's any rain coming until Sunday, so that's good. I'll take that for sure.
Mm-hmm. A little bit warmer, but that's okay. Still good.
No. I like it. I like it a lot. You know, I know that I'm preaching to the wrong group about this because, you know, here on Super Talk 99.7 WTM, we have very smart listeners. We have people who care deeply about what goes on in the world around them. We have people who understand how the concept of America came about, and they understand what our Constitution provides for us in the way of God-given rights. But you know what? It is shocking, stunning, and amazing to me that there are a great number of people who do not understand about the blessings of liberty and the gifts that were given to us by our Creator and that are protected by the Constitution of the United States of America. There is a thing called the Annenberg Constitution Day Civics Survey, and they do it annually. And I'm going to read some numbers here for you, and I think you're going to be shocked, and I think you'll be dismayed that things are so bad that people have such a lack of understanding of what government is supposed to be. Respondents were asked to name all of the rights guaranteed by the First Amendment of the Constitution. And there are a bunch of them, by the way. 77% could only name one. They knew that the First Amendment meant that you're supposed to have freedom of speech. But boy, I'm telling you, when you get into the depths of this thing, only 1 in 20 can name all 5 freedoms protected by the First Amendment. Besides freedom of speech, being the most widely remembered right guaranteed by the First Amendment, another 40% of Americans were able to name freedom of religion. At least that's good. 33% could name the right to assembly. 28% remembered freedom of the press. And a meager 9% understood that the First Amendment gives Americans the right to petition their government. In total, just 5% of U.S. adults could correctly cite all 5 First Amendment rights. 30% named 3 or 4. Just under half named 1 or 2. And with that being, freedom of religion and freedom of speech. Over 1 in 5 Americans responded to the question by listing the right to bear arms, which is a right not guaranteed under the First Amendment, but one that is guaranteed under the Second Amendment. So if one trend is clear, they say it's the vast majority of Americans are at least aware of freedom of speech, but just how much do people actually understand about what that right entails? Over 53% consider it accurate to say that the Constitution's protection of freedom of speech means that Facebook should let all Americans post about anything and everything, while 47% dispute that interpretation. There's no doubt that this has been an eventful year for the Supreme Court, they go on to write. The poll asked respondents about their knowledge and attitudes toward the current group of justices, and the answers were split almost evenly down the middle. 51% said they disapprove of the Supreme Court's recent decisions. 49% said they approve. I think that's probably focused on the issue of abortion, and I think that's where we are as a nation. I think we're split right up the middle. Survey participants were also asked what percentage of Supreme Court cases over the prior year has been determined by a 9-0 or 8-1 vote, considered a unanimous or near unanimous vote. Respondents had to fill in a number between 0 and 100. Just a fifth, 22%, recorded answers that fell correctly within the 41 to 60% range. Did you know that? Between 40 and 61% of all decisions are unanimous or near unanimous. On average, Americans said 35% of rulings were either 9-0 or 8-1. And although we have a 6-3 conservative court, More than half of the decisions in 2022, 2023 were decided by 9-0 or 8-1. I did not know that. I have to say I didn't know that. Here's where it gets interesting. Most respondents, 71%, correctly answered that when the Supreme Court rules 5-4 on a case, the decision must be followed. Another 16%, however, erroneously believe that a 5-4 ruling meant that it would have to go back to Congress for reconsideration. And 12% said the decision would be sent back to the Federal Court of Appeals. And if the president and the Supreme Court disagree on whether an action by the president is indeed constitutional, who has the final responsibility and say for whether it is constitutional? The president, the Congress, or the Supreme Court? The majority, I'll give them this one, correctly answered that the final responsibility lies with the highest court in the land. Once it goes to the Supreme Court, it is a decided matter until and unless the Supreme Court takes up the issue again. Another 21% said Congress. Yeah, if there's a disagreement, well, it goes back to Congress. 4% said the President of the United States, and 21% said they simply did not have any answer to that question. It is shocking to me that we do not teach apparently civics in a positive way or in a good way in this country. Oh, we got plenty of time to talk about other things, to talk about the critical race theory, and we got a lot of time to talk about this, that, and the other. We need to be talking. It's just as important as the math and the English and the writing and the reading and all of the science is an important to have an understanding of government. Yeah, I got to tell you, I guess I was immensely blessed. In high school, I had a government teacher by the name of Mrs. Hirsch. I still remember her as my favorite teacher of all time. She was great. She was fantastic. She led great discussions in the classroom. And you know what? She would, we always thought we were being pretty smart because we thought we could get Miss Hirsch off topic and we didn't have to really do anything. But you know what? It always came back to some kind of lesson that had to do with government or the Constitution or something about what we have as Americans that many other countries do not have. I got all the way basically to Washington, D.C. That was my complete understanding of government, is what I learned in Mrs. Hirsch's class when I was a senior in high school, because I didn't go to college till I was in my mid-40s. So everything that I know about government as a reporter covering Capitol Hill and covering the White House, I learned in high school. It did me. I'm pretty good education, I would say.
It's a pretty good teacher there, yeah.
Got a pretty good teacher. Got me a long way down the path. And you know what? Many people do have teachers like that. And if you're one of those who believe in teaching government and about the blessings of liberty and the guarantees of the Constitution, our God-given rights, and all of that, I God bless you. You're doing good and important work. Because if you don't understand these things, then government, I think we're in this position right now. Government thinks it's in charge. Government believes that they are in charge of everything that goes on in America. And that's not at all what our government and our Constitution teaches. We are the boss. They are our employees. And yes, we send our representatives to Congress to write the laws, and we elect presidents who are supposed to take an oath of office to faithfully execute those laws. I don't think they always do, in my opinion, but that's at least the oath that they take. And we have to obey those laws, or we will come in trouble with the long arm of the law. But it always comes back to the fact that we don't work for them; they work for us. And when you lose sight of that fact, then, government can become too powerful. And I think that we're in a situation in this country right now where that is the case. I think so many people just Well, the government says I need to do this, so I'll be a sheeple and I'll just do it, you know. Government says I need to take a vaccine, I'm going to take a vaccine. Government says I got to do this, I got to do that. Government says I got to wear a mask to get on an airplane. Well, I guess that's exactly what I'll do. You know, look, I'm telling you, we've lost that major understanding about the relationship that's supposed to take place between the people and those who we send to represent us. And there's another thing that's gotten way out of balance, in my opinion, and that is the power of agencies. They don't write laws, but they write a lot of policy, and they write a lot of interpretations of the law, and they write a lot of regulations, and it has, in effect, the power of law. And that has gotten out of balance as well. So I guess what I would say to anybody listening right here who's shocked by some of these numbers as I am, is if we are parents, I don't know that we can count on our school system anymore to teach government and help people understand what that relationship is supposed to be. And if we are parents, we have an obligation. If you're within the sound of my voice, I know you probably get it. You probably understand these things maybe better than I do. But you have an obligation to make sure that that is passed on to your children and that they have that understanding. I'm astonished and dismayed by the lack of understanding that people have about the relationship between the people and the government, about our Constitution, and about the way it's supposed to work. So parents, teach your children well, as they said in that song. You have an obligation to make sure that this information is passed on to them, and you have discussions about it, about the miracle of this country. And I don't mind saying the words American exceptionalism. Boy, there's so many people now that look down at that idea, but it is an exceptional experience, an exceptional experiment in the way government is supposed to operate. For the people, by the people, of the people. And that we have rights that are given to us not by the government, but by our Creator. Wow. What an experiment. I think we've lost our way in some regard, and we need to make sure that young people are getting this education. 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. Hey, many of you have lived for a long time in this area. You know about Eurofix. It's been in Middle Tennessee. It's been the place to go for your European car repairs now for 24 years. We've watched them grow, and I love watching a hometown business take off. Well, the folks at Eurofix are very now proud to announce a 5th location for Eurofix now in Mount Juliet, on Mount Juliet Road. Beautiful facility right across the street from the Dairy Queen. Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now in Mount Juliet. I think it's pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in a barn in the backyard of his single-wide trailer grow to 5 locations and be responsible for repairing thousands of cars each month. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. So call this number, 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com.
No special arrangements for Hunter Biden's arraignment. The Pentagon planning to review cases of LGBTQ plus veterans that were denied honorable discharges, and some money news. That and more 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 23 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. Mac Morey in the newsroom, and there's Chris Weber, who is pushing all the blinky buttons. And guys, we have been having a little bit of fun, and it's really not, it's only can be a little bit of fun because nobody got seriously hurt in this thing. But about the missing F-35 that it took some 25 hours to locate, we're getting a bit more information, but I want to start with this. You'll love this. You'll think this is a hoot, as they say. When you're in television news, and I did local television news for a long time, as I made my way into the larger and larger markets of the country, into the nation's capital eventually. Something happens, they say, well, get out there and find out somebody who saw what happened and do a man-on-the-street interview. We call them, I don't know, what we used to call them is, MOS, man on the street. But then, we thought, well, then it became, not, you can't say that because sometimes it's not men, it's women. So we said, we called them POS. But that also stands for something else. And
Just don't call them that to their face.
you don't say that to their
Hey,
face.
you
That's
POS.
right. Hey, you POS. That's right. So we don't do that anymore. I mean, the original I used to call them sound bites. In radio, the terminology is actualities. I don't know why they call them different things, but I always radio. You got an actuality for me? Sure. Okay. Well, and then in TV, they call them sound bites. But you go out and you say, well, you go around the neighborhood. There's been a plane crash, for example, and you go and you say, I need somebody who heard it, or saw it or witnessed it, and you need a witness. You need an eyewitness. And so you find a guy, as they did in South Carolina, who heard something when it crashed. This man's name is Randolph White, retired from his job at the paper mill in Georgetown 10 years ago. He was, and it's hard to understand him at times because he was taking a shave, is what he says.
That's what he was doing, yeah.
That's what he's taking a shave, or maybe doing something else. Who knows? But I mean, he says he's taking a shave when he heard an awful noise.
In the bathroom taking a shave, and I heard a screeching, between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard boom. Then my whole house shook. The first thought came to me, I said, what's it, a meteorite coming out of space?
A meteorite.
From outer space.
I said, well, if the airplane, it needed to be reported, but the thing was flying just too low.
He said, and he said there was, it's amazing that nobody got hurt because there was a church nearby. But I mean, when you ask him, describe what you heard.
Between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this?
Sounds like James Brown. Oh, that is great.
Oh. I mean, ever so often, you run across that great soundbite. I mean, when I was in local television news in small markets and we got sent out to do something, you would when you got a soundbite like that, you would call everybody into the edit room, into the edit booth. You've got to hear this interview. This is the best MOS ever, and so you would play it, and I guarantee you, we put them on a reel. We saved them. We thought these were great, So, to find somebody like that, but I just, this may become. That may become. What in the world is this?
That's a hot button worthy piece of audio right there.
Yeah, I have a special button that's going to be placed on right here. So we can. Anyway, he said he's 72 years old, and he says that. It's a good thing that nobody got hurt, and his speculation at the time was it was a meteorite from out of space. He said just through the grace of God, nobody didn't get hurt because there's a church right up there about half a mile. Anyway, now, as long as we're talking about this, there is actually some real information to be learned about what happened. And I think maybe we owe the Marine Corps a little bit of an apology here, and the pilot a little bit of an apology, if this is true. Okay, so here's what we know. A U.S. Marine Corps pilot was flying a single-seat F-35B. Now, its Marine Corps has a different variant of the F-35. It can take up vertically. It can, like a jump jet, like a Harrier jet, take off directly and then transition into going forward. And so those actually, they're not $80 million. Those are more expensive. They are about $100 million. So it was a $100 million aircraft. The aircraft was only at an altitude of about 1,000 feet, which is not very high, and about a mile north of the Charleston International Airport in a populated area. And that's when, for some reason, the pilot ejected and he parachuted into a residential backyard.
Wow!
Imagine you're on the patio having, your afternoon beverage, adult beverage, and here comes a pilot landing in your backyard.
Honey, did you order something?
Now, as they say, the Marine Corps variant of the F-35, different from the Air Force and Navy, can take off and land like a chopper. It allows it to operate on amphibious assault ships. It is also different in that, listen to this, it is the only one of the three variants that has an auto-eject function on its ejection seat.
What?
Yeah. The Air Force and Navy versions, the pilot has to initiate the ejection. In other words, they have to reach down and pull the handle, right?
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah. But they say that the auto-eject function is in place on the Marine variants because they want to protect the pilot in case something goes wrong with the aircraft when it's in hover mode.
Okay.
Was that function triggered for some reason and punched the pilot out? There are a lot of unanswered questions, and there is a case where an F-35B, which had not yet been delivered to the Marine Corps, was at Joint Reserve Base in Fort Worth in Texas, about to be delivered, and it was in hover mode, and then it sort of came down. It got like
kind of wonky,
out of position, wonky in position, and it landed hard, and many ejected, and it was done apparently automatically. So they are looking to find out if it was an auto eject and why. And in the meantime, that raises questions about the other Marine variants, and they're looking very carefully at all of those systems. And the fact that it just continued on is still something of a mystery as well, because apparently it was in auto mode and it just took off. But nobody knows why the auto eject function. At least that's the story the pilot is telling. How that happened.
Stick to it, I bet.
Yeah, I'd stick to it. It's 31 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
.431, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 85 degrees right now on Music Row. Got a full weather forecast, latest traffic report headed your way in 5 minutes. There will be no special arrangements made for Hunter Biden's arraignment on charges related to his purchase of a pistol while he was an admitted drug user. Stephen Portnoy.
The president's son, who now lives in Southern California, had hoped the federal court in Delaware would allow him to make his initial appearance via video conference. But Magistrate Judge Christopher Burke says in his 12 years on the bench, he has no memory, absent the pandemic, of any defendant making an initial appearance other than in person. It means Hunter Biden will have to enter his not guilty plea to gun possession charges in Wilmington next Tuesday.
And CBS News reporting the Pentagon plans to review cases of LGBTQ plus veterans denied honorable discharges under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They'll determine whether to upgrade those discharges, which means they get benefits that may have otherwise been withheld. We're talking access to college tuition assistance, health care, and some jobs. Now over to Money News. Daria Albinger.
Stocks fell even though the Fed is taking a pause on interest rates. The Dow gave up 77. The Nasdaq tumbled 209 points. And the S&P closed down 42. The Fed left a key interest rate unchanged for the second time in its past 3 meetings, which could be interpreted as a sign that the central bank is moderating its fight against inflation as price pressures ease. Consumer inflation has dropped from a year-over-year peak of 9.1% in June of 2022 to 3.7%. But Chair Jerome Powell says the work is not done yet and that we can expect at least one more interest rate increase this year. More layoffs at the big 3 automakers with the United Auto Workers strike in a 6th day. General Motors idled a plant in Kansas with 2,000 workers because they don't have parts to work with. And Stellantis, which makes Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram says it expects to cut more than 300 jobs in Ohio and Indiana.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Something awesome is happening at Genesis Diamonds this Friday through Sunday. Man, get ready. If you've been hearing about this, it's big. It's a 3-day designer engagement ring event showcasing the world's 2 top brands in bridal jewelry, Tacori and Verragio. Tacori from California, Verragio from New York. Both here with their entire lines, including all new rings for this special event. You can explore hundreds of exquisite American-made designer rings. Plus, Genesis will have special incentives, 0-interest financing, and up to $5,000 in instant savings. In addition, Genesis has an expanded selection of GIA-certified diamonds for this 3-day event. All shapes, all sizes, rock-bottom prices for the rock you want. This is the best of the best. Every Tacori ring handcrafted by master artisans with exceptional quality. Every Verragio ring is made by hand with unmatched attention to detail. These are brands that other jewelers only wish they could offer, but at Genesis they have their entire Tacori and Verragio collections, and they'll all be on display this weekend. Don't miss the bridal jewelry event of the year, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills, and Cool Springs.
I finally figured out what it was that what that needed. So this is what I came up with. That's what it was missing.
No. Now we just got to have a James Brown moment, because I'm telling you, that's exactly what I needed today. A little James Brown. Woo! Oh, man, I got to see James Brown one time in concert.
I bet that was something.
It was toward the end of his career, and it was in D.C., and it was at a charity event, and they made a big deal out of not telling you who the big surprise entertainer was. And so you went to this event, and every year they would have a really big name that would show up. But you never knew it, and they wouldn't tell you who it was in advance. And so, the whole night is building up and building up. And they did tell us that the master of ceremony that night was going to be the comedian Sinbad.
That's pretty good.
That's great.
And so, yes. So Sinbad came out, and he apparently had not been told that it was a secret.
Oh.
And so he gave it away like in the first few minutes. And I can't wait to see James Brown a little bit later. And then we went,
But then you were excited that it was James Brown.
Yeah, I was excited. And he came out and did the thing with the cape and the whole 9 yards. Oh, I'll never forget it. I would have loved to have seen him in his prime. And he was still trying to do the splits a little bit, and it was
couldn't quite get all the way down.
Couldn't quite get all the way down, but it was a good show. His voice was still in very good shape. But yeah, this is going to. I got to find a place for this.
I said, what in the world is this?
That is fantastic.
Oh, that's just too good. I just love that so much. We talk a lot about, the Democrat states and the red states and the blue states, and how, how great it is to be here in a state where we have conservative leadership and conservative values, and that how many people are all over the country. They've had enough of the chaos that you're finding in some of the blue states, and they're coming to places like Tennessee. They're coming to places like Texas. They're coming to places like Florida, and we are the beneficiary of the growth, and they are losing people because it's becoming, for various reasons. I mean, one of the reasons that you might leave California, for example, is here's a story. Los Angeles average gas price tops $6 a gallon. $6 a gallon in Orange County. You see, in many states, the price of gasoline and oil, and it's all pretty much the same from state to state. I mean, maybe a little higher here and a little lower there, but generally, it's the gasoline doesn't cost anymore. It's the taxes that you add. The vast majority of those taxes that you're seeing there, $6 a gallon. It comes because it's not the price of the gasoline, but the price of the exorbitant taxes in the state of California. But listen to this. California is expected to lose 5 House seats in the 2030 readjustment. They do a census read out every 10 years, and then they readjust the number of congressional seats based on how many people live there. They are on track right now, just the way it is now, that the next time they do that in 2030, they will lose an expected 5 House seats. Think about that. Whew. The latest California population estimates show heavy shifts in House seats in the Democrat states, which is on pace to lose many as 5 congressional districts in the 2030 reapportionment cycle if current trends persist. Several projections using 2022 population estimates have estimated the California population could cause a trim to its delegation. California lost a congressional district in 2021 due to population decrease. The state typically experienced population rises every year, but has remained mostly flat since 2017. It went down during the pandemic, and they may have lost as many as, California's population declined during the pandemic by 500,000 between April 2020 and July 22, and then another 138,000 have left. So that's like 638,000 people have left the state. Wow, that's like a pretty good sized city. Have left the state of California. That according to the Department of Finance. The decline is commonly attributed to low birth rates, high taxes, and crime. They're leaving because the place is becoming a hellhole. What is the thing? Listen to this story. Tell you how good you have it here in Middle Tennessee, where they enforce the law. Well, unless you live in a blue city. A Democrat district attorney in California is suing the Democrat-led city of Sacramento. That's the state's capital, by the way, for those who know, and allowing homeless conditions to devolve into a squalor akin to a third world country. At a press conference Tuesday, Sacramento County District Attorney Tien Ho announced that his office had filed a civil lawsuit alleging that the city of Sacramento violated California Civic Code, specifically that it allowed and created and enabled a public safety crisis regarding the unhoused. In the last 7 years, Sacramento's unhoused population exploded by over 250%. There are more homeless people in Sacramento than San Francisco, and you know what a mess that is. The community is at a breaking point. We have an unhoused population living in conditions typical of the third world, and we have the rest of the community stuck between compassion and chaos. How did we get here? We are stuck in this never-ending Groundhog Day loop where nothing gets better and nothing improves. Enough is enough, said the district attorney. The lawsuit says both Judge Michael Bauman and District Attorney Ho wrote letters to the city of San Francisco sounding the alarm. Daily incidents include physical and verbal assaults, public sex acts, open fires, nudity, urinating, and defecating on walkways, the complaint claims. I remember the last time I was in San Francisco, it's been many years since I was in San Francisco, and now they apparently, people just poop and pee everywhere. And I remember the biggest problem that you had with that kind of thing in San Francisco were the sea lions down down on the shore. They're disgusting, but I mean apparently not nearly as disgusting as the people who are doing it now everywhere in the city of San Francisco, Los Angeles, Sacramento, all over. He says things have worsened. He sent a survey out in July asking the community to describe how 16 major homeless encampments in the cities impacted quality of life. He said the responses were heart-wrenching. I asked the city to extend nearly 3,000 responses. I asked the city to extend the same protections they give to themselves to the rest of us. I mean, really, this is why people are trying and dying to get out of California right now. Think about it. I mean, California. There's a lot to like about California from a climate standpoint and from the weather is really, really nice, and you got the beaches and the Pacific Ocean there, and I mean, it's just, you got all kinds of wonderful things, wonderful natural resources. Why would you want to leave California? It would seem, I remember people say, there was a time when people said, I will never leave California. I will always be a Californian. And now they can't wait to get out. Whew. Homelessness exploded by 250%. Here's another story. San Francisco hits record overdose deaths, 3 per day from fentanyl. In San Francisco, every day, 3 people are dying from fentanyl overdoses. More than in any month since records started being kept in 2020. A sign of the city's continuing struggles with drug abuse and the opioid pandemic on its streets. The number of overdose deaths in San Francisco jumped yet again in August from 84 to 84 from 74 in July, tying January as the single deadliest month for overdoses since the city started tracking the statistics. It is a state of emergency. High taxes. DAs that don't prosecute and try to get crime off the street. smash and grab robberies in California are a common thing because nobody wants to enforce the law. And I think I read somewhere that in California, if you're stopped by police for a smash and grab, it's a misdemeanor ticket. A misdemeanor ticket. It's like a traffic ticket. Oh yeah, I see that you've stolen, a Viraggio, some kind of, what is it? What are the really expensive bags? I forget, but an expensive bag.
Gucci.
A Gucci bag. Yeah, a Gucci bag. And I see that you've stolen a Gucci bag worth about $6,000. Well, here's a $25 ticket. And that's the way it works. So, nobody's prosecuting and nobody wants to, and that's why people are leaving. And they're coming here, and I used to think, oh, this is bad, all these Californians coming to Tennessee, but it's not. Because the people who are leaving the state of California in record numbers and coming to places like Nashville, Tennessee, are coming here because they want what we have and they appreciate it. And I would not be surprised that by the time we get to 2030 that California loses a few more congressional seats. Because I don't think that the great migration from blue to red is far from over in my mind. Make that 50 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. We know that diversification is an important part of the investing process, but how do you reduce risk of a portfolio through diversification? Well, you use correlations. Now think of bathing suit sales and suntan oil sales. They tend to move together, right? Think of bathing suit sales versus winter coat sales. More dissimilar movement, and that's the idea. But why is diversification so important? Well, think about it this way. Everybody would like to have this happen with their investments. They just go straight up. But what we know is this is really what tends to happen. Markets may go way up and then down, or down, then way up. Now let's say if we isolate parts of that curve right there, and the first curve right there, and the second curve right there. If you're putting money away for retirement, every time you put money in, if this is what's going on, you're buying more shares. Then just before you retire, the market goes up, you're really happy. If, on the other hand, you keep paying a higher and higher price and then the market goes down, you're really sad. And we can't choose what's going to happen with the market next. But what we can do is what we know through academic research, and there are Nobel Prizes awarded for this, is we can look for things that tend to move in dissimilar fashion. And what happens when we do that, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio, hence bringing those curves in. Now that's the idea. Now if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Government shut down bed bugs in a Tennessee movie theater. New Nashville Mayor-elect Freddie O'Connell has an idea for metro high schools. And a popular AI forum, ChatGPT, being sued by some authors. Those stories and more coming up at 5 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Mac Maury, stay tuned because I know that you count on me for the very latest in moon news.
Yes.
We've had 3 full moons that are super moons. July 3rd, the full buck moon. We had on August 1st, the sturgeon moon. Then at the end of the month, because it was the second one in a month, it was the blue moon. And we have one more super moon coming on the 28th, which will be called the full corn moon or the harvest moon.
Good grief.
Wow.
That's right. And by the way, they call that the full corn or the harvest moon because it's near the autumnal equinox. That will be Saturday.
That's right. That's
right. First day of fall is Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
overwhelmed with moon news.
You've got overwhelmingly important moon news. All right, it is 58 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. If you have a desire to add gold, silver to your portfolio, you should listen up. I want to tell you about Nashville Gold and Coin, and if you're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand, gold, silver, or bullion. It's the place I recommend. It's the place I do business. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and a real precious metals education. They also specialize, and this is pretty cool, in the buying, selling, and appraising of coins. Do you have any idea how much those old coins you have laying around might be worth? I grabbed some that I had. It was in a shoebox. It's in my sock drawer. Hadn't thought about it in years. Turned out to be worth $1,652. So whether you're in the market to purchase precious metals or you just want to find out what those coins in your closet might be worth, schedule a one-on-one consultation today. Go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
5 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 85 degrees in Music City. We got a complete weather forecast coming your way along with a traffic report in 5 minutes. The federal government spending showdown appears to continue inside the Capitol as House Republicans remain divided on whether to keep the government open past the September 30th deadline with a continuing resolution or shut the doors until a full agreement can be reached. Tennessee 5th District Congressman Andy Ogles tells WTN's The Chris Ann Show.
The big holdup for a lot of us at the end of the day is the spending level. Going back to pre-COVID.
Speaker McCarthy today expressing optimism they'll solve this problem, and Congressman Ogles says he's ready and willing to stay in D.C. this weekend to try. Right now in Tennessee, a Mount Juliet couple went to a local movie theater, and they ended up with dozens of bed bug bites. Michael Steplowski is now frustrated that Regal Cinemas will not cover the expenses that were required to get rid of the bugs. Steplowski called it a traumatic experience and said he doesn't know if he'll ever go to the movies again. Some of the bites on him and his wife got infected. Overall medical bills and extermination bills cost around $2,000, and the insurance company for Regal Cinemas said they're not legally responsible for what happened and they denied the claim. Staying in Tennessee, Nashville's new mayor-elect Freddie O'Connell went to social media to say that he wishes to change high school's start times. Here's Channel 4's Brendan Tierney.
Every metro high school, including Pearl Cone, start at 7 every morning. That's the earliest start time across the entire country. Mayor-elect Freddie O'Connell says later high school start times is something he wants to work on starting day one in office. He cites research done in Florida schools that shows students have much higher test scores if they start later.
And arguments against earlier start times would point towards some parents having to stay at home longer because of them. And some popular authors not happy with the company behind ChatGPT, and they're suing. Jason Nathanson.
OpenAI, the parent company of ChatGPT, has stoked the wrath of the father of dragons, Game of Thrones creator George R.R. Martin, and also John Grisham, Mary Bly, David Baldacci, and other best-selling authors. They're suing the AI company, saying their works were fed into the system to help it learn without their permission and without compensation. In the complaint, they say OpenAI evaded the Copyright Act, and this is a straightforward infringement case. They're seeking unspecified damages. So far, no response from OpenAI.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. 6 after the hour of 5 o'clock. It's time for hour number 3 of The Drive here on Super Talk 99.7. You know, it's where we bring you news and information you can use so that you arrive home and you have stuff to talk about with the fam, or wherever it is you're going, you'll have some talking point. You'll say, hey, you know, I learned something today. And people will stand in awe of you and your knowledge. And you don't even have to give me credit. I don't care. I'm here for you. That's what it's all about. Now, today, I just want to mention, we are just about 23 minutes away from the highlight of the show, Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports. Yeah. It's become a real fan favorite. It's become appointment radio. No matter what people are doing, they run back in and they turn on the radio. We can't miss Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports. And today, we're going to, it's going to be sort of a story about the intersection of sports and entertainment. Sports, some people think sports is entertainment, but this is in a different way. It's an intersection of sports and entertainment.
Let's just say you're not going to be able to shake this one off. It'll give you some real bad blood.
Oh, that's right.
Clever.
You know, Mac Maury, I knew you were trouble when the moment you walked in.
Nice.
And there's a big hint there. If anybody's smart, if you're picking up what we're putting down. All right, let's talk about what happened on the Hill today. Everybody was paying attention to an appearance before the Attorney General of the United States. Well, he's supposed to be the Attorney General of the United States. He's supposed to be the Attorney General for all of people of the United States. He's supposed to be the Attorney General who operates the Department of Justice without fear or favor. But, you know, many people believe he has become the attorney for the Biden administration, and that's not really what his job is supposed to be. He's not the president's lawyer. He's the top law enforcement officer in the country, and they've been dying to get him before the House Judiciary Committee to ask questions about, we feel like there's a two-tiered system of justice. You know, you might be shocked, stunned, and amazed. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, does not feel that way at all. No. He thinks everything is on the level. Everything is just as it should be. And anybody who believes otherwise is just badly misinformed.
Our job is to uphold the rule of law. That means we apply the same laws to everyone. There is not one set of laws for the powerful and another for the powerless, one for the rich and another for the poor, one for Democrats and another for Republicans, or different rules depending upon one's race or ethnicity or religion. Our job is to pursue justice without fear or favor. Our job is not to do what is politically convenient. Our job is not to take orders from the president, from Congress, or from anyone else about who or what to criminally investigate. As the president himself has said, and I reaffirm today, I am not the president's lawyer. I will add, I am not Congress's prosecutor. The Justice Department works for the American people. Our job is to follow the facts and the law, and that is what we do. All of us recognize that with this work comes public scrutiny, criticism, and legitimate oversight. These are appropriate and important given the matters and the gravity of the matters that are before the department. But singling out individual career public servants who are just doing their jobs is dangerous, particularly at a time of increased threats to the safety of public servants and their families. We will not be intimidated. We will do our jobs free from outside influence, and we will not back down from defending our democracy.
Well, I let him have his say there. That was in his opening statement. I gave you about a minute 45 of Merrick Garland with some commentary. But I will tell you that on the conservative side of the ledger, there is an overwhelming sense that the Justice Department is stacked against anybody who happens to be a Republican. If you're a conservative, well, there's one set of rules and one application and an aggressiveness that come after you that we do not see if you happen to have a D behind your name. And Jim Jordan, the chairman of the committee, who I have a great deal of admiration for, he was having none of it. He wanted to know, about, this dual standard of justice that we have seen play out in the Hunter Biden case.
Quote, Mr. Weiss has full authority to bring cases in other jurisdictions if he feels it's necessary. That was your response, Attorney General, to Senator Grassley's question on March 1st, 2023. You just referenced it when Mr. Bishop was questioning you. Only problem is he'd already been turned down by the U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia, Mr. Graves. So he didn't have full authority, did he?
I had an extended conversation with Senator Grassley at the time. We briefly touched on the Section 515 question and how that process went. I've never been suggested.
My point's real simple, Mr. Garland. You said he had complete authority, but he'd already been turned down. He wanted to bring an action in the District of Columbia, and the U.S. Attorney there said, no, you can't. And then you go tell the United States Senate under oath that he has complete authority.
I'm going to say again that no one had the authority to turn him down. They could refuse to partner with him. They could not.
You can use whatever language. Refuse to partner is turning down.
Well, it's not the same under a well-known Justice Department practice.
Here's why the statute of limitations question is important, and Mr. Bishop was getting at just a few minutes ago. Here's why it's important. You let the statute of limitations lapse for 2014, 2015. Those were the years with the felony tax charges where Hunter Biden was getting income from Burisma. Here are 4 facts that I think are so important. Hunter Biden was put on the board of Burisma, made a lot of money, got paid a lot of money over those years. Couple $1 million. He wasn't qualified. Fact number 2, he wasn't qualified to be on the board of Burisma. Not my words, his words. He said he got on the board because of his last name. The brand, as Devin Archer said when he was under oath and we deposed him. Fact number 3, Burisma executives told Hunter Biden, we're under pressure, we need help. Fact number 4, Joe Biden goes to Ukraine, leverages our tax money, American people's tax money, to get the prosecutor fired who was applying the pressure. Interestingly enough, that fact is entirely consistent with what the confidential human source told the FBI, and they recorded in the 1023 form, the same form Mr. Wray didn't want to let this committee and the Congress see. That all happened. That all happened. And what I'm wondering is why you guys let the statute of limitations lapse for those tax years that dealt with Burisma income.
There's one more fact that's important, and that is that this investigation was being conducted by Mr. Weiss, an appointee of President Trump. You will, at the appropriate time, have the opportunity to ask Mr. Weiss that question, and he will no doubt address it in the public report that will be transmitted to the Congress. I don't know the answer to those questions.
Did they forget? Did the lawyers just let it, did they just oh, darn, we let it, were they careless?
I expect that won't be what he says, but because I
You know that's not the case, because as Mr. Bishop pointed out, they had a tolling agreement. They talked to Hunter Biden's defense counsel and say, let's extend the statute of limitations. And then at some point, they made an intentional decision to say, we're going to let the statute of limitations lapse. And I want to know who decided that and why they did it.
Mr. Weiss was a supervisor of the investigation at that time and at all times. He made the appropriate decisions, and you'll be able to ask him that question, and he will.
You know why they did it? Everyone knows why they did it. May not say it, but everyone knows why they did it. They didn't. Those tax years, that dealt with that involved the president. It's one thing to have a gun charge in Delaware. That doesn't involve the president of the United States. But Burisma, oh my, that goes right to the White House. We can't have that. And we can slow walk this thing along. We can even extend the statute of limitations, and then we can intentionally let it lapse. And we know this investigation was slow. Here's what everyone said. Shapley said, DOJ slow walked the investigation. Ziegler, slow walking in the approvals of everything. This happened at the Delaware's attorney's office and DOJ tax level. Mr. Sobocinski, the FBI agent, said, I would have liked to see things move faster. Ms. Holly said the same. Every witness we've talked to said this thing was slow walked, and we know why. They slow walked it long enough to let the statute of limitations run so they wouldn't have to get into Burisma.
And by extension,
where I'm wrong.
Where is he wrong? He's not wrong. And so because they were not going to get into Burisma, they were not getting into issues that could potentially touch upon then Vice President, now President of the United States, Joe Biden. I'm telling you, who do you believe? I'll just ask you. You've heard the whistleblowers talk about this and how that they felt like it was being slow walked and there was an unusual reluctance to move forward on the particular case. And they quoted Weiss as saying that he went and tried to file cases in the District of Columbia and in California and was turned down on both occasions. He actually said to the whistleblowers, and they have contemporaneous notes to this fact, he actually said, I am not in charge of where this case can be tried. I do not have full authority. It's what Weiss said, and the whistleblowers made a note of it. And they said they'd never seen anything quite like it. So, yeah, they let them lapse. Now, there are other tax charges that have not lapsed, as I understand it, and there may well be a further investigation into that. One more little clip here. This is Mike Johnson talking to the Attorney General. Congressman Johnson wants to know about whether or not he's had certain conversations with David Weiss.
End quote. With whom did Mr. Weiss have those discussions?
I'm not going to get into the internal deliberations of the department.
But you must, sir. This is important for us. We have oversight responsibility over your department, and we need these answers.
As appropriate and necessary for Mr. Weiss to have conversations with the department. I made clear that if he wanted to bring a case in any jurisdiction, he would be able to do that. The way you do that is to get an order signed by the Attorney General called a 515 order. I promised he would be able to do that, and he in his letters made clear he understood he would be able to do that.
Okay. Can you tell us about any briefings or discussions that you personally have had with Mr. Weiss regarding any and all federal investigations of Hunter Biden?
I'm going to say again, I promised the Senate that I would not interfere with Mr. Weiss.
So you have not, I'm just under oath today, your testimony is you have not had any discussions with Mr. Weiss about this matter?
Under oath, my testimony today is that I promised the Senate I would not intrude in his investigation. I do not intend to discuss internal Justice Department deliberations, whether or not I had them.
Well, hold on. He's leaving open the option that maybe he did have some conversation. He just didn't want to talk about them. It's one thing, to say, well, I'm not going to interfere. I'm not going to intrude into the investigation. Well, you can have conversations about the nature of the case and how it's going, and are you running into any kind of problems? That's not intruding. That's not interfering. That's just being apprised of what's going on in your own freaking department. You're the Attorney General of the United States. You have a right to know what's going on and what the district attorneys, the USDAs, and the U.S. attorneys around the country are doing. But he doesn't want to confess that he had any conversation at all. I won't talk about it at all.
Oh, okay. So your testimony today is you're not going to tell us whether you've had discussions with Mr. Weiss.
My testimony today is I told the committee that I would not interfere